So guys, I want you to welcome to the stage Lisa MacFarlane, the co-founder of the Gut Stuff, Alana MacFarlane Kempner, co-founder of the Gut Stuff, and Peter Bardell, founder of Revolt. These guys started with a website with the aim to empower gut health in everyone. And they've grown an expert team of scientists, nutritionists, dietitians, and doctors to keep us all on the right side of the tracks when it comes to bullshit versus the real shit on gut health. In my script, they've asterisked out shit, but I still have to read it, so that was fairly pointless. This year's seen them launch a huge range of exciting new products with corporate wellness and an education program to help support them on their mission. So guys, come on out.
This is the weirdest thing, Friday. We're actually very shy.
Before we start, Lisa and I actually met through this process.
Getting married, unfortunately.
Yeah, so if we spontaneously start arguing about things, that's nothing to do with the presentation, it's more living with each other in lockdown.
Yeah, and likewise, we've been sisters as well. The family affair. It's a very unprofessional combination, actually.
So to make people feel at home like they are missing out, who here thinks purpose is a load of shit? That's good. I think what's really important is, and I'm not going to talk very long because it's far more exciting to hear them speak, but I think you've got to define what you mean by purpose. So for us as a collective and a group and with the other people we work with, it's profitability, solving the problems of people and planet while not profiting from creating them. And I think that's a really important distinction because I think purpose is often, in our view, used wrongly, used as a marketing ploy, used as various different things. So the definition is a really important place to start. On the right-hand side, it's just a tool that we used at the beginning of the process to go, okay, where as a business do we want to show up? Where do we want to help people and planet? And there's a lot more outside of that. It gets quite depressing when you go into all the issues that are around in the world. But I think it's starting from that premise of, people and planet. So the reason why it's become increasingly important, again, very personal view, is you look at the timeline of what's happened. So you started, with, do his name right, Milton Friedman, in case you don't know who he is. He specifically said this statement. It'll be good to see in the audience, people at home, how this makes you feel. So he said, companies' only responsibility is to make profit. Now, if you said that in today's world, I'd argue that that would jar with quite a lot of people. So you can see, purpose is clearly a thing, if that's how it's progressing. So then you moved into around the corporate social responsibility, which is John Ellington's triple bottom line, which people started reporting and trying to work out, okay, there's definitely sustainability and things a thing we need to think about, we need to be responsible, but it was always it's a secondary thought, it was always a bolt-on or an add-on. And as I talk through this, you'll see where our definition of purpose has got into the business and how it's grown across. And the next is cause marketing. So you could argue we're probably still in this era a little bit, but I think we're getting out of it. And I think like a lot of things in sort of marketing communications and tech, sort of digital communication, you start to see that actually the consumer's getting further ahead than we are. So the consumer's much more aware of this than some of the older people in the businesses that are run. So I think cause marketing has come under a lot of abuse because, again, it's still an add-on. It isn't actually driving the business. It's a section of a company that is trying to use a cause to generate fame while not trying to solve it necessarily or help it. So I think cause marketing is often what gets, in my view, misguided as purpose. We're not believing that. So we believe, and where we're going to start the sort of main talk today, is purpose is now, has to be a fundamental part of a business. So it's now coming into the center of the business. It's driving innovation, it's driving sustainability, it's driving recruitment. So you've started to see a shift of something that was not needed or seen as radical into a shift to something where it's actually started to become core of the business. And at MadFest, this is what we believe and what we all are seeing with some of the clients we work with, including girls, is purpose transformation is businesses following the same trajectory as digital transformation. I'm sure a lot of you watching and a lot of you here will remember when sort of, Facebook started, it's not that long ago, people go, no one will ever buy stuff online. Digital ads don't work. People just want TV ads. Press is brilliant. And that hasn't become completely true. It hasn't replaced everything, but businesses have been going through a digital transformation, and it's become even to the point where digital shouldn't really be a word. It's just everything is digital. It's just how we live now. Everything is connected, and that is how sort of businesses are growing. So our view, my view, is that in the next 20 years, companies that have a purpose and a clear role about how they're profiting from helping people and planet will be the businesses that succeed. And I think that's a hugely important thing for people to, companies to be aware of, that unless you start doing that, I think the business, it will still exist, don't get me wrong, but I think you're not creating businesses and companies to exist. You're creating businesses and companies to thrive. So therefore, it's like digital transformation. The companies that are disrupting now, and a lot of the brilliant businesses and a lot of the speakers here, have digital at the heart of it, because that's how people live. And I think we're in a stage now where purpose has become so important to people of a younger generation, Gen X, Gen Z, we see it every day, that isn't going to change. Now, is it going to be everything totally? No, completely not. But I think it's a really important part of that journey, and I think the new businesses going forward should have it. So that is, again, I'll stop speaking, let the girls go, so we were, Lisa and Alana and I met, when we started Revolt, so a fair few years ago. And, we didn't give them a purpose. We extracted the purpose from them and operationalized it. And I think that's another big issue, is people often have these big, lovely words behind a desk as you walk into an office. How does that actually operationalize? How does that affect your business decisions, marketing decisions every single day? So what we created was this 7-step process, and I'll talk it through very quickly, and then the girls will pull out the key bits about how they used it and how they sort of gained a lot of success through it. We won't go through every single one. If you want that costs money. No, I'm joking. So you start with the future. What's the future you want to see? What's the future you want to be part of? What's the future your business has in society? What's that role? Then a roadmap. Again, operationalize that future. How do we get there? What are we going to do along the way? How are we bringing people with us? And also, how are we getting people excited? And that's where the vehicle comes in. So a vehicle, we're all marketers here mostly. People love brands. People engage with brands. Brands are amazing. So you've got to brand that change. Brand everything you want, because otherwise it won't cut through. And then I think mission. So if you've got a big, purpose, which I'll let the girls talk about what it is, how are you getting there along the way? You shouldn't be able to complete your purpose. It's not a video game. It should be big enough that it's attainable, but you've got missions along the way that help us achieve that and also keep people interested. So if you say, a lot of the statements at the minute for ESG, going to be carbon neutral by 2050, does a consumer care about that? Are they going to be interested in your brand? Are they going to wait 30 years to see if you did it? So I think you have to have missions along the way that keep people interested. And then mind bombs, a phrase we stole from Greenpeace, which is how you catapult into society, how you disrupt with your purpose and communications through digital especially to get people interested. Because when we all started together, there wasn't much money. And I think that's changed, but I think you still have to learn how to disrupt. And a mind bomb, it's not TV, we don't know what it is. It's whatever that catapults your future into people's lives. And then innovation, you've got your purpose, and how are you creating new products that deliver against that? I don't think any business setting up now or looking now going, we make bars or we make chairs. If you want to grow a bigger business, you've got to have a bigger vision to it. So I think it's not focusing on what product you're going to make, it's focusing on what role you're going to play in the future you want to be part of. And then finally, alliances, which are absolutely vital, is if you are going to help the people and planet, ask the people and the planet how to do it. There are people who know how to help these things, and there are various different, not necessarily NGOs, social lots of different people who understand the people and planet better than you do as a brand or company. So talk to them. And if you want to get to that future, so Nutritank is the one the girls use, and they're unbelievable. So I think that's very quickly the 7 steps that we sort of all sat down and talked about a fair few years ago now. and I'll hand over to the girls to talk through what that actually means to them.
Thank you. Could you hear any of that? You all right?
Yeah.
Alana's grown a human, so she's a bit spaced out quite a lot of the time. Yeah, so that's the theory. In practice, it was a lot more chaotic than that. We threw a lot of shit at the wall. But our kind of main purpose is to democratize gut health, and it's probably worth us talking a bit about our story, because we're from working class Scotland. For lunch, we used to have deep fried pizza and chips and 10 Lambert and Butler. We are not from the health and well-being world.
We also used to be DJs.
We also used
very
to be DJs.
hedonistic lifestyle.
The last time we saw these headsets, we were DJing for Tia Maria. So yeah, I'm about to play Fat Man Scoop in a second.
But yeah, so we were DJs. We actually volunteered for Twin Research back in 2015. And Tim Spector, who you might have seen quite a lot in the press just now, he invented the COVID symptom app. He asked us if we wanted to have our guts analysed, and we were like, what's our guts? What do you mean by that? But anyway, you know, colonoscopies, we were chief guinea pigs. Later, they found out that even though we have 100% the same DNA, we only have 30 to 40% the same gut bacteria. So this is quite groundbreaking research at the time. And it really got us on a journey, not just within gut health, to be passionate about gut health, but looking at health in general. You know, when we used to think of health where we're from, you know, in Scotland, it was just not being ill, and, you know, wellness was something that Gwyneth Paltrow talked about, standing on your head, drinking green smoothies.
Or the cabbage soup diet before Magaluf.
Exactly.
Yeah, what our thing of diet was, cabbage soup diet before Magaluf. And what we realised was that there was such a gap between science, health practitioners and the consumers, and we wanted to bridge that gap. We knew as well that the gap had to be, actually, we should say as well, it was a passion project for a very long time. So we were DJing, and we set up a website called thegutstuff.com. So when people said don't use gut in the title, and now we're in some sort of SEO haven, Alana made a really shit logo on Adobe Photoshop. She's still proud of it, and it was like a micro of the gut stuff, and the worst.
It's not the branding you see today, anyway.
It wasn't this. But we actually, not only did we see a gap between science and communication, so a lot of people were learning what to eat on Instagram, and we saw a gap within industry. So you had big strategics making products that people kind of knew of. You had pharma companies that were making postbiotics, and consumers were still like, what's my beer belly? So we knew that we had to do this in a way that was efficacious and came straight from the scientists. So that's the minds bit. The guts bit, so a lot of people did not want to talk to us about gut health, obviously. Our pals were like, you know, what do you mean? I don't really get it. Like this microbe stuff, I don't get it. And we knew in order to cut through the normal health and well-being advertising and marketing, and really like, you know, the consumers that we wanted to reach, so a millennial Gen Z audience, at the time, to start thinking about prevention, you're competing with Ariana Grande, you're not competing with other health and well-being brands. I think as well, like, the way the tone of voice of the brand was how Lisa and I would speak to our mates around the dinner table. And that's how organic our tone of voice was. We didn't come up with that in a boardroom. It's literally with us talking shit. Lauren, our head of social, is here, and she was like, does this sound like you or not? I'm like, just put a Scottish accent on it and it will. Put an in at the end or something like that. A couple of sweeties. Okay, so how did we start building the business? We started off with supper clubs initially because we wanted a two-way dialogue. The reason for the supper clubs was either we were going to our friends' supper clubs called Dram and Smoke, so we were getting really drunk and having deep fried food, or we were going to wellness supper clubs, eating a lot of sauerkraut and then getting fish and chips on the way home because we were hungry. And we were like, actually, a dinner table conversation is a really, like, you know, palatable way where we can learn what the baseline knowledge is. So that then went into Time Out, named it one of the best things to do in London. It wasn't, but it was nice of them to say so. So we started selling out 120, and then we took over Old Street Station. We basically got a call from a peer here, and they were like, do you want to take over the station? We grossly underestimate how much work that was. We did it in 6 weeks.
There was a team of 3 of us at the time, and we were still DJing.
Yeah, we had everyone from Kellogg's to small artisan fermenters, because we knew in order to really fulfill our purpose and democratize gut health, we needed to create a category with other brands. So we wanted Kellogg's to speak to this brand that was in East London making sauerkraut in their kitchen. So we took over Old Street. That was brilliant. We realised when we started talking about microbiome testing, and people in Old Street were like, yeah, the microbiome, yay! And we were like, okay, we need to take this elsewhere. So we went to Manchester, and people were like, gut health, what do you mean, my beer belly? And we were like, sort of, pal, we are not in Kansas anymore. And that's how it progressed. So we started off with road shows, getting the baseline knowledge. And as Peter mentioned, we do have a corporate wellness arm to the business as well, because as we started to get out into the world and gut health started to become more prominent, we realised a lot of the time we were preaching to the converted. So it was people that came up to us, found us on Instagram. So we were in Bristol at a roadshow, and somebody asked me if I used caraway seeds in my sauerkraut. So I marched up to our commercial director and said, we're preaching to the converted, like, we can carry on, but we need to reach new people, because this is, someone's asking me about a fermentation thing, so let's get out. So she marched us down to a Balfour Beatty construction site, and we did a talk to all the builders, which was one of the best days we've ever had. And that was the start of our workplace wellness, because we knew, aside from traditional marketing, which we'll get onto, we needed to market our brand to people that didn't want to hear about it. So we've been everywhere now, we do Visa, Aegon, Facebook, all their workplace wellness programs, because people are like, is this an enforced yoga class or a green smoothie? I don't want to be here. And we knew that to keep building the brand, we'd have to keep putting ourselves out of our comfort zone.
And it's so difficult, because with marketing, obviously, people say, who's your target demographic? Who's your target audience? And it's so difficult because gut health affects everyone. I think one of the problems we came across was when people think gut health, they think of people with digestive issues, so IBS, IBD. But actually, when we talk about gut health, we mean, the microbiome, which affects everything from our immune health to our mental health. So we have to target everyone. And within marketing, we were like, how do we do this? How do we pique people's interest and attention to actually get them to learn the science? Turns out it's putting poos on bus stops. Peter and I came up with this campaign just before Christmas, when we were locked in the house together. I actually wanted to do a campaign about skinny teas and detoxes, and Peter was like, just put the poos on bus stops, Lisa, it's really simple. So we did.
So really the interesting thing about this is one of the issues with democratizing gut health is people don't want to talk about poo. So everyone said, don't mention poo. We're doing a campaign at the minute. It's about fibre bars that say, amazing going in, better coming out. So I think you've got to challenge the convention of talking about stuff. Don't mention poo and food, you can never do it. So this is actually the Bristol stool chart, which is a real scientific device. If you go back to the minds going your guts. So what you've done is democratize gut health by taking a scientific thing, which is the Bristol stool chart, making it accessible, funny and interesting. I think the poos are called the Terminator, the clingy one.
There's actually a spreadsheet of the poos that I think the Guardian wanted to publish. I was like, if you can go for it if you want.
So then what you have is then a digitally targeted campaign. So we knew we didn't have much money. We had 15 grand to do some bus shelters. This is my earlier point about digital. Everyone took pictures of these. So effectively, you could say it's an analog influencer campaign, which is just a poster campaign. So the interesting thing, we targeted people in health and wellness and the media who lived in areas around southwest London. So actually we're speaking to a lot of people with influence who will then share these posters. That's what happened. The girls got on Sky News because of them, but it all came back to actually those three pillars. If you democratize gut health, how do you do it? It gives the business a real clarity and energy around certain things. So it makes your marketing and advertising disruptive because it has a purpose and a utility.
Yeah, we're also as well now doing a hyper-localised Facebook and Google display campaign based on people that have seen the posters for our product. So we'll report back. It's been going for a week. It's going well so far, but we'll see. And as Peter said, what I hadn't anticipated when you do marketing well in a way like this was like buyers got back in touch with us that we've been chasing for ages, and like the kind of business acceleration that happened based on putting poos on bus stops kind of blows my mind.
We also gave a lot of children on the school run a good laugh. And in a national lockdown, I was like, job done, really.
Also, they did say, do you want to pull the campaign because it's now in lockdown? I was like, longer dwell time maybe? No one's got anywhere to go, so we kept it.
At first they were like, who does an out-of-home campaign in a national lockdown? But here you go. We took the risk and it worked.
It's cheap.
It was cheap. Yeah, exactly.
And as a start-up, that's top of the list.
We're running out of time quickly, but I guess to show how this can manifest itself in products, basically, education stays at the heart of everything that we do. Democratizing gut health is always through the lens of everything we do as a company. But we are a business, we have got funding and we make money. But the reason that innovation came out of this education was people were like, this is great. I know I need to, look after my gut health, feed my microbes, fibre. How am I going to get more fibre in my diet? So our innovation of product came directly from our purpose. And our bars are an accessible price point. We're in D2C, so we're direct to consumer, but we're also in accessible supermarkets, not just the health food stores. You can get our bars in, Boots, Superdrug, Holland and Barrett. And it was important when we were innovating, as a startup, difficult to get margins at an accessible price point. But every time we came back to, will the majority of the UK be able to afford this bar? And will they understand it? Will they find it accessible? And obviously it had to taste good. And that's just our prime example of us commercialising the business, but still having purpose at the heart of doing that. It was basically, can our mum buy it? And will it make her gag? What?
We've got to do questions.
Oh yeah, we've got to do questions. Basically, it worked. That's what happened.
Right, we have got to do questions, but
Sorry.
I've not got any questions on this tablet that it's supposed to send me them. So we can go old school. If you have got a question, put your hand up and yell. If not, I've got loads.
Okay.
Come on, these guys put poo on bus stops. That's not a phrase I thought I'd be using today. So you've talked about the growth, you've talked about where you are. How do you, and you sort of mentioned it in the last points there, the pressures of growth plus the pressures of purpose. You've got to be strong on that, haven't you? How do you make sure you don't think, oh, we could use a cheaper supplier or...
Yeah, I guess it's accountability. So we're B Corp pending. So how many ways can you make yourself accountable? B Corp is a very long-winded and but brilliant way to do that. You have to change your articles of association legally, to be B Corp. So I think there's that. And I think, on the team, just putting everything through the lens of, firstly, our mum, we give her some gin and ask her if it's our purpose.
I think it's short term versus long term. You've got to go into a business wanting to build it to last. If you're going into a business to turn a profit in Q1, Q2, your business isn't going to last very long. But the tricky thing has been for girls, but where it's all helped, has been investors.
Yeah.
Finding the right investors has been a key thing. But most investors now are changing towards this way of investing.
Yeah. And building and going back to the community, and lockdown was great for that for us because we really went back to why we started the business in the first place, and we hold each other accountable a lot.
I love your social stuff. I've been looking at it before we did the stuff. Social's obviously been huge for you guys. Has that been, you decided that was the way you get, without chucking poo at bus stops? Again, sorry. But was that always going to be the key driver for the business?
Well, it was the only thing we had. Yeah, it was all we had. And also, it was organic, so we... It's not thanks to Lauren and Canva, basically. But yeah, it was organic, and we made sure that we have like a gut gang, which is like a concentrated community of our followers, so 8,000 people that we ask all the time about MPD, what content they want. And I think it's just about it being a two-way dialogue, making sure that you're replying and keeping it like a dialogue rather than chucking content at them. Yeah, and originally, the website and Instagram was all we had control over because we didn't have enough money to do it. And the website was too expensive to change, so we put everything on Instagram. I actually learned how to do WordPress, and I think I sort of made things break more than I
we've all been there. Guys, what a brilliant way to start the day. I think that's one of the most refreshing talks I've heard at a show in quite some time. So please show your appreciation for Lisa MacFarlane, Alana MacFarlane Kempner, and Bardell Revolt.